Everyone inside the grand restaurant felt the air freeze the moment the billionaire's fiancée raised her hand and struck the young waitress across the cheek in one sharp motion that echoed through the hall like a sudden clap of thunder leaving the entire room, trapped in silent shock as eyes widened and breaths caught in trembling confusion, because no one understood what had truly happened and why such a dramatic scene had burst into their peaceful evening. The waitress named Mia stood completely still, her head slightly tilted from the force of the strike, her cheek growing red while her eyes remained calm and steady, though a quiet tremble ran through her fingers as she held the tray close to her chest, the glasses rattling softly, as if reacting to the tension hanging heavy in the room. Victoria Hawley, the glamorous fiancée with sparkling jewelry and an icy gaze, stepped back with her chin lifted in anger, her voice slicing through the silence as she accused Mia of ruining her expensive designer dress, claiming the waitress had spilled something on her, even though many guests who saw the moment clearly felt something was strange, because Mia had barely come near her before the slap landed. Ethan Ward, the young billionaire, known for his calm nature and sharp mind, hurried toward them from across the room, his face filled with confusion and worry, because he had never seen Victoria act this way, and he did not understand why she felt the need to strike someone in public, especially someone working quietly and politely. The crowd of diners whispered among themselves, leaning closer to each other with raised brows and startled expressions, wondering who Mia was and what she had done to provoke such sudden anger, but even more curious about why she stood so still without crying or arguing back, her soft eyes holding a quiet strength none of them expected. Victoria pointed again at her dress, demanding an apology, shouting that she had been humiliated in front of the entire restaurant. But as the lights glowed warm over the tables and the staff stared in shock, something on Victoria's dress began to slowly appear, a faint dark stain forming near her waist, spreading in a thin line that drew curious gasps from the nearby customers. Maya noticed the stain too, but she did not move. She simply looked at Victoria with the same calm, steady expression that confused everyone even more. And then she took a slow, careful breath, as if deciding whether she should speak or stay silent, while Ethan watched her closely, studying her face with a strange feeling rising in his chest, though he could not explain why. The people around them leaned in even more, whispering that the stain did not look like something a waitress carrying clean glasses would cause, but more like something spilled earlier by someone else, perhaps someone who had come close to Victoria long before Mia approached the table. Yet Victoria seemed determined to blame Mia and raise her voice again to demand another apology. At that moment, a tiny soft sound escaped from Mia as she gently set the tray down on a nearby table and lifted her head fully, her hair falling back from her face and her eyes shining with a gentle sadness mixed with courage, a kind of expression that made several diners hold their breath, because it felt like she had finally decided to speak. Even though her voice came out quiet and calm, she said that she had not touched Victoria at all, and that the stain was not from her. But Victoria interrupted, shouting that she was lying, and everyone should see how careless and clumsy she was, even though the room held more doubt than agreement, because many people had clearly seen Mia walking carefully and had noticed that she had not even come close enough to spill anything. The tension in the room continued to grow thicker and deeper as Ethan looked around at the faces of the guests, who watched with expectation, some of them pointing discreetly at Victoria's friend, who sat nearby holding an empty glass of red liquid that matched the spreading stain on Victoria's dress, though she was trying hard to hide her trembling hands beneath the tablecloth. Ethan noticed the trembling and the empty glass and suddenly felt even more confused by the situation, because something did not make sense, and it was becoming clear to him and to many others that Mia might not have been the one who caused the stain on the dress, which meant the slap might have been a terrible mistake made in anger without understanding. But before Ethan could say anything, Mia took a deep breath and raised her voice slightly so everyone could hear her soft but firm words that carried through the room with a quiet strength, as she said that she had come to the restaurant today only to do her job and serve with kindness and respect, and she added that she did not deserve to be treated this way no matter who the other person was or how much money they had. Everyone in the restaurant felt the tension grow even stronger as Mia stood there with quiet courage, refusing to bow her head. Even though she had just been slapped by the billionaire's fiancé and blamed for something she never did, the room felt charged with unspoken questions and rising curiosity, because no one expected a simple waitress to stand with such calm strength in front of a powerful and angry woman. Like Victoria pulled her hand back again as if she wanted to continue shouting, but before she could say another word, something in the air shifted and the whole room leaned forward with interest, because the story everyone thought they understood no longer seemed clear. The stain on Victoria's dress looked darker now, and the shape of it was spreading slowly, matching perfectly with the empty glass of red drink that her friend Lily had been holding just moments earlier. Even though she was trying to hide it under the table, Mia kept her eyes on Victoria, not with anger or fear, but with a quiet sadness that made the crowd feel a sting of guilt inside their hearts, as if they had judged her too quickly and now regretted it. Ethan watched this with growing confusion and a strange tight feeling in his chest. He could not explain why he felt protective of Mia or why her calm voice had shaken him more deeply than Victoria's loud accusations ever could. Victoria waved her hand sharply, demanding that Ethan speak on her behalf and defend her pride. She insisted that Mia had ruined her evening and embarrassed her in front of everyone, but her voice sounded less powerful now and more desperate, as if she felt the room slipping away from her control, and she knew people were starting to doubt her story. Mia looked at Ethan for a long moment, her soft eyes holding a message she seemed afraid to say, but also afraid to keep hidden, and when she finally spoke, her words came out gentle but strong, cutting through the room. With surprising clarity, she said she had been blamed unfairly, and she was tired of people like Victoria thinking they could treat others however they wanted, simply because they had money or status. She said every person deserved basic respect, no matter who they were or where they worked. The crowd felt her words run through their hearts like a warm wave of truth, and several guests nodded quietly, even though they tried to hide it. Victoria saw the shifting expressions on their faces, and panic flashed in her eyes. She stepped forward and jabbed her manicured finger toward Mia, saying that the waitress was trying to pretend she was innocent only to gain sympathy, but her voice shook slightly, and everyone noticed it. Lily, Victoria's friend, tried to look calm, but her hands betrayed her shaking as she held the edge of the tablecloth, her eyes darting from the spreading stain on the dress to the empty glass near her elbow. Her guilt seemed too heavy to hide, and a few customers noticed this and whispered among themselves, pointing discreetly at her trembling hands. Ethan's confusion grew heavier as he watched everything unfold. He remembered how Mia had stood still when she was slapped, how she had not shouted back or cried. He remembered her gentle voice and the strange feeling that he had seen those eyes before, somewhere long ago. In a moment he could not fully recall, he looked at Mia closely, trying to understand why she felt familiar when Victoria tugged on his arm, demanding he speak up. He took a slow breath and asked Mia to explain exactly what had happened, and the restaurant fell completely silent, waiting for her answer. Mia lifted her chin slightly, her hands still shaking a little, but her voice steady. She explained that she had only approached Victoria's table to deliver glasses, and she had not touched her dress or come close enough to spill anything. She also said that she saw Lily stumble slightly earlier, and that was when the red drink splashed. Everyone turned their heads to Lily, who looked frozen like a statue, her lips trembling as she tried to speak, but no words came out. The guilt on her face was undeniable, and a soft gasp spread through the room. Victoria's expression shifted from anger to disbelief as she stared at her friend, realizing the stain had not come from Mia at all, but from Lily's clumsy movement. Still, Victoria refused to give up. She shook her head and said it was all a trick that Mia had planned. Something to make her look foolish. She said Mia probably wanted attention or money. But the guests were no longer convinced. They had seen Mia's calm, honest behavior, and they had seen Lily's guilt written across her shaking hands and uncertain eyes. Ethan stepped forward slightly and asked Victoria to calm down, but she snapped at him, insisting he choose her side without hesitation. Her voice cracked with frustration, making the crowd uncomfortable. Mia watched all of this with a quiet expression, as if she knew the truth would reveal itself no matter what Victoria said then. Mia said something that made the entire restaurant go silent again. She said she had a reason for staying calm and a reason for speaking the truth. Even though she could have walked away, she said she respected Ethan more than he realized, and she owed him something important, something she could not say yet, but something that mattered deeply. Her mysterious words sent a ripple through the room, filling everyone with new curiosity and suspense, because suddenly the story was not just about a slap or a stain, but something deeper, something hidden, something that connected Mia and Ethan in a way no one understood yet. And even Ethan felt his heartbeat quicken as he stared at her, wondering what secret she was holding inside her heart. Restaurant felt heavier than before, as every eye remained fixed on Mia, Ethan, and Victoria, because something deeper was clearly hidden beneath the surface, and everyone could feel it, like a slow burning fire waiting to burst into bright flames of truth that could not be ignored anymore, even by the people who wished the scene would end quietly. Mia stood with her hands gently folded together, her calm expression hiding emotions that trembled beneath the surface, but her eyes held strength. That surprised everyone, especially Ethan, who kept staring at her. With a confused mix of familiarity and curiosity, he knew something important was trapped in his memory, something connected to her, though he could not understand what it was or why. It hurt a little to think about it. Victoria, on the other hand, refused to let go of her anger. She stepped closer to Ethan, speaking in a sharp whisper that everyone could hear anyway, asking him why he was even listening to a simple waitress when she was the one who deserved protection. But the room no longer agreed with her, because her voice sounded forced and uncertain, and her eyes flicked nervously toward Lily, who still sat in stiff silence with guilt spreading across her face like a shadow. Lily tried to avoid everyone's eyes, but it was impossible. The stain on Victoria's dress was too clear, the empty glass near her hand was too obvious, and the trembling of her fingers was too strong to hide. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out, as if her throat had locked itself with fear and shame, while the crowd leaned forward in anticipation, wanting the truth to break out at last. Mia finally turned her head slightly and looked at Lily, her voice soft but steady, as she asked her gently if she had something she wanted to say. The question was calm, but it hit Lily harder than any anger could, because it came with kindness instead of judgment, and kindness was sometimes more powerful than rage. Lily squeezed her hands together and shook her head, though her eyes began to fill with tears that she tried to blink away. Victoria snapped at Lily, demanding she deny everything and defend her, but Lily only shrank deeper into her seat, her shoulders shaking as she whispered that it had been an accident. She admitted that she had bumped into Victoria earlier and spilled her drink, but she said she had been too scared to confess because she thought Victoria would blame her or embarrass her in front of everyone, so she stayed silent even when Mia was hit and blamed instead. A wave of shock rolled across the room as guests gasped softly and looked at each other in disbelief. Victoria stared at her friend as if she could not understand how Lily dared to tell the truth in front of Ethan and all these people. Her face flushed red with anger and humiliation, and she took a step back as if the world had betrayed her. Mia remained quiet, her expression soft as she watched everything unfold naturally. Just as she had expected, Ethan felt something inside him shift like a puzzle piece snapping into place. He looked at Mia again, studying her face with deeper focus, and a sudden memory returned to him like a warm but painful flash. He remembered a rainy night many years ago, a frightened little girl clutching an old backpack, her hair wet and tangled, her face scared but brave as he bent down to help her and asked her name. The memory hit him so strongly that he nearly lost his breath. His eyes widened as he whispered Mia's name, not with confusion this time, but with dawning recognition. Mia looked at him with soft surprise, as if she had wondered whether he would ever remember her. or whether the moment they once shared had been lost. Forever inside the chaos of his busy life, the room around them grew still again, waiting for her reaction, waiting for the truth, waiting for the next turn in the story. Victoria saw the shift in Ethan's expression, and panic spread across her face. She stepped between them, raising her voice and saying, Mia was lying again, that she was trying to trick Ethan into feeling sorry for her, that she probably made up some story to look innocent and important, but her words sounded desperate, like she was fighting a battle she already knew. She was losing, and her voice cracked under the weight of her own fear. Mia did not back away. She took one step forward, her voice gentle but strong as she said, "There was no trick and no lie." She explained that Ethan had helped her when she was a child, and she had never forgotten his kindness. She said she had come to work at the restaurant recently, never expecting to meet him again, but when she saw him tonight, she felt she had to speak the truth, even if the world tried to silence her. The guests felt their hearts pull toward her, because the sincerity in her voice was impossible to ignore, and even Ethan felt a deep warmth filling his chest as he remembered the frightened girl he once helped, and how brave she had been, even at such a young age. Victoria tried to interrupt again, but her voice was lost in the wave of emotions that filled the room, because the story had outgrown her control, and the truth was no longer on her side. Mia lowered her head for a moment, then lifted it with renewed courage as she said something that made the whole room lean closer. She said she had not returned to Ethan's life by chance. She had come because she carried something important, something connected to his mother, something she had promised to deliver, something that would change everything if only he was ready to hear it. Restaurant felt like a storm ready to break as every person watched Ethan, Mia, and Victoria standing in the center of the room with tension thick enough to touch. The truth was rising fast, and no one wanted to look away, because every second felt like the start of something even bigger than the drama. They had already witnessed Ethan's heart beat faster as he looked at Mia with growing recognition, the memory of the little girl he once helped becoming clearer with every moment. He studied her face. He could see the same gentle strength he remembered from that rainy night long ago, and it made his chest tighten with emotion while Victoria watched him with fear and disbelief. Victoria stepped closer, gripping Ethan's arm, trying to pull his attention back to her. She said Mia was lying again, and that he was being fooled by a simple waitress who wanted attention, but her voice cracked and her eyes darted nervously around the room, because she could see the crowd was no longer on her side, and even Lily would not look at her anymore. Mia took a small breath before she spoke again, her voice calm but full of meaning. She said she had come back into Ethan's life for a reason. She said there was something important she had to tell him, something she had been waiting for years to deliver, something connected to the last promise she made to someone Ethan loved very deeply. And the moment she said those words, the whole room leaned in closer. Ethan felt a heaviness settle in his chest. He asked her what she meant and why she knew anything about his past before he could say more. Mia reached slowly into her pocket. The room held its breath as she pulled out a small folded envelope that looked old and carefully protected. The handwriting on it was delicate, familiar, and filled with emotion. Ethan recognized it instantly, and his breath caught in his throat. It was his mother's handwriting. Mia held it with both hands, trembling a little as she explained that years ago, before his mother passed away, she had met Mia by chance. Mia had been alone, scared, and lost, and Ethan's mother had comforted her. She told Mia stories about her son and gave her encouragement. She even helped her find shelter that night, and Mia had never forgotten her kindness. Mia continued, saying that Ethan's mother had written this letter during her last days. She had asked Mia to keep it safe and give it to Ethan when the time was right. Mia said she had searched for him when she grew older, but his world was too private, too unreachable, and she had given up until the moment she saw his name on the restaurant schedule and felt something telling her that now was the moment she had been waiting for. The entire restaurant felt frozen. Ethan took the letter carefully, his fingers shaking as he held the final message from the woman he loved more than anyone. He could not open it, yet he needed to understand. He looked at Mia with eyes full of emotion. asking why she went through all this trouble for him, why she waited so many years, and why she stayed quiet, even when Victoria attacked her. Mia's voice softened as she said that Ethan's mother had changed her life. She said the kindness she received in her darkest moment had stayed with her forever, and she promised herself she would honor Ethan's mother by bringing the letter to him, no matter how many years it took. She said she worked hard, studied, and built a life so she could return with dignity instead of showing up weak and broken like the girl she once was. Victoria's face twisted with anger. She shouted that this was all a story created to steal attention and make Ethan feel emotional. She said Mia was manipulating him, using a sad tale to break his engagement and gain sympathy, but her voice sounded hollow and desperate because no one in the room believed her anymore, not even the staff who once feared her entrance. Ethan finally pulled his arm away from Victoria and stepped between her and Mia, his voice calm but firm, as he said he needed to hear the truth without shouting or accusations. He turned toward Mia and asked her to continue. He asked her what else she had been keeping and why she chose today to reveal everything after all these years. Mia looked down for a moment, gathering strength, then lifted her head and said, "Today became the day because of the slap," she said. The moment Victoria struck her, she realized she could not stay silent. She could not allow a promise made out of love to be drowned by cruelty or lies. She said Ethan deserved to know the truth, and she would endure anything to make sure the truth found him, no matter the cost. Crowd felt a powerful wave of emotion because Mia's courage shone brighter than anything they had ever seen, and Ethan felt something in him shift, like a door opening inside his heart, letting in light that had been missing for too long. He felt anger, sadness, and gratitude all tangled together as he stared at the woman who had kept his mother's final words safe for so many years. Victoria tried one last time to pull Ethan back, but her voice broke, and she stepped back shaking with frustration because she understood something she had never imagined. Ethan was seeing Mia in a way she feared most, and the truth Mia carried was stronger than anything Victoria could say or do. A heavy silence covered the restaurant as everyone waited to see what Ethan would do next, because now the truth was out in the open, and there was no way to hide behind lies or pride anymore. Ethan held the letter from his mother close to his chest, his hands trembling with emotion, while Mia stood quietly in front of him, her eyes soft but brave as she waited for him to find the strength to open the past she had carried for so long. Victoria watched them with panic rising in her throat. She could feel the attention slipping away from her completely, and desperation pushed her to speak again. She stepped forward, raising her voice and demanding that Ethan stop listening to Mia. She insisted that Mia was only trying to break them apart and create drama, but her voice sounded weak and her words had lost all power in the eyes of the crowd. Ethan did not look at Victoria. He kept his gaze on Mia, as if she was the only person in the room who mattered in that moment. He asked her how long she had kept the letter and why she had never tried to reach him earlier. Mia took a slow breath and said she had tried many times, but she was too young, too scared, and too lost in her own struggles. She said she promised herself she would return only when she was strong enough to face him with dignity. The crowd felt their hearts move with her words, because there was honesty in everything. She said a kind of honesty that did not need loud voices or anger to be believed. Mia continued explaining that she worked for years just to prove to herself that she deserved to deliver the message she had been trusted with. She said Ethan's mother had given her hope, and she wanted to live in a way that honored that gift. Ethan felt tears rise in his eyes, but he blinked them back, trying to stay steady. He looked down at the letter again, his fingers brushing the edges like he was afraid it would disappear if he held it too tightly. He asked Mia if his mother had said anything else to her, something he might need to know before reading the final words she left behind. Mia nodded softly, and the room leaned closer to hear what she would say next. She said Ethan's mother spoke about him with so much love. She said she believed he would become a strong gentleman who helped others without expecting anything in return. She said Ethan's mother told her he had a soft heart, even though the world around him was often cold and demanding. She said Ethan needed someone real, Someone honest, someone who would remind him of who he truly was whenever life tried to change him. Those words struck Ethan deeply. He felt something unlock inside his heart, something warm and painful and familiar all at once. Victoria heard those words too, and her face twisted with frustration. She shouted that Mia was just trying to replace her, that Mia wanted Ethan for herself, but the crowd did not believe her anymore. Her voice sounded like a fading echo that no one cared to hear. Ethan finally stepped back from Victoria, his expression calm but firm, as he told her to stop. He said he needed space. He said he needed to understand everything before making any decisions. Victoria's mouth opened in shock, because this was the first time Ethan had ever spoken to her with such distance, such control, such strength. She felt the ground slipping beneath her feet, and she tried to reach for his arm, but he moved away. Lily, who had been silent for a long time, finally stood up, her voice shaking as she apologized to Mia. She said she regretted staying silent and allowing her to be blamed and hurt. She said she should have spoken earlier, but fear had frozen her. Mia gave her a gentle nod, forgiving her without needing any grand words, and the crowd felt touched by her kindness once again. Ethan looked at Mia, and then at the letter again. He wanted to open it, but he felt he needed to hear one more thing first. He asked Mia why she had stepped in front of Victoria earlier, when the argument started, why she had remained calm even after being slapped. Mia lowered her gaze for a moment, then lifted it again, her voice soft but clear as she said, she did it because she respected him, and because she respected his mother's memory. She said she could not let lies destroy something his mother had treasured. She said she wanted Ethan to see the truth, even if it meant facing anger and pain. She said sometimes a promise was stronger than fear, and she had promised his mother she would protect the message until the right moment arrived, and tonight she felt that moment had finally come. Ethan felt his heart twist with emotion, and the entire room watched him as he slowly unfolded the letter, his mother's handwriting glowing softly under the warm lights, the paper trembling between his fingers. Everyone leaned closer, breathless, waiting for the message that could change everything in the next moment. Ethan lifted his eyes toward Mia, as if asking silently if she was ready to hear it with him, and Mia nodded with gentle courage, making the whole room fall into an even deeper silence.